We start with breaking news on the way the NSA conducts surveillance. Moments ago, the Senate passed the House version of the USA Freedom Act. The bill is now headed to President Obama's desk and will probably be signed tonight. Now, the bill puts the mass collection of telephone data in the hands of phone companies instead of the government. The irony here is, of course, the Republicans love the work of the private sector. Well, they're going to get a chance to do it. It brings major reforms to our way the government conducts surveillance. The Freedom Act also brings some transparency to the mostly secret FISA court. Some in the Senate aren't so happy with this version of the bill, but they voted for it. It passed by a number of 67 to 32. The Senate killed a number of amendments to the Freedom Act before today's final vote. These amendments, called by some a poison pill, they would have sent the bill back to the House, where it would likely have been killed. Now, the First Amendment that they voted on today would have gutted the bill's effort on FISA court transparency. They can't operate in secret. Now, the Second Amendment would have lengthened the transition period from 6 months to 1 year. The final two amendments would have required phone companies to notify the government before changing data storage policies and required the NSA to certify companies have transitioned properly. Now, Republicans mostly supported these amendments. Today was filled with debate on the Senate floor. Vermont Senator Patrick Leahy led the charge in support of the Freedom Act.
Brings much needed reform to the government surveillance authorities. It'll end the bulk collection of Americans' phone records. It'll increase transparency. It'll improve oversight. Most importantly, help restore Americans' privacy, all the while ensuring our intelligence community has what they need.
Meanwhile, Republicans were pushing hard for these amendments today, even though it probably would have died over in the House. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell took a pretty good swipe at the president and said he's not sure the House-passed Freedom Bill will keep America safe.
Before scrapping an effective system that has helped protect us from attack in favor of an untried one, we should at least work towards securing some modest degree of assurance that the new system can, in fact, actually work. The Obama administration also already told us it would not be able to make any firm guarantees in that regard that it would work.
Critics of the bill say leaving data in the hands of private companies will slow down response times to act on potential threats. Here's the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Richard Burr, today.
You're moving a database, you're making it slower. Now you're setting up a mechanism inside to slow it down even more. What we're doing is we're shifting from intelligence gathering to investigations. Nobody knows how long it's going to take from the time we present a FISA court with a foreign terrorist's telephone number before we actually have completed a search process within this new database.
No doubt a complicated issue with passionate views on both sides. America absolutely needs to find a way to balance civil liberties and our security. But what's most important, as I see it at this hour, there was debate, and it was being held in public, something that we have been lacking on a number of occasions. Edward Snowden's name was thrown out often today on the Senate floor. I have reserved commentary on him. Many people think that he is a hero. The word traitor was thrown out today. I have a hard time arguing with that. I do know some members on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and I think if information had been brought to them, this could have been handled in a totally different manner. And I think, for instance, maybe Ron Wyden, if he had known that the NSA was operating the way they were, he would have done something about it through channels that might not have damaged our security. President Obama feels that Snowden damaged America's security and our ability to respond. So all of us out across America tonight, I guess, can be so excited that, yes, we're still safe and all of our private phone information is going to stay just that way. Although, do you trust the private phone companies? And there's some 1,400 of them in this country that we can now go to and find out just who's calling who. And I thought that Mitch McConnell made a very profound point today. It's not about conversations. It's not about content. It's not about names. It's about the connecting of numbers. And his question was, whose civil rights and civil liberties are violated with that? And sitting there watching it, I couldn't answer that right away. Get your cell phones out. I want to know what you think. Tonight's question: Will the USA Freedom Act make America safer? Go to pulse.msnbc.com/ed to cast your vote. We'll bring you the results later on in the show. For more, let me bring in Senator Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin. Senator, good to have you with us tonight. I appreciate your time. You were one of the no votes today.
I was.
Can you tell our audience what your thinking was on that? And I appreciate your time.
Yes, well, Ed, I served in the House of Representatives back in 2001 when the original USA Patriot Act was brought to the floor. While I had worked on it in the House Judiciary Committee and we actually had reported out a bipartisan version, it was substituted at the last minute with something that the Bush administration wanted, and I voted no. And I have been very concerned about the ways in which it erodes checks and balances. I was concerned at the time that it could lead to government overreach. Certainly we've seen that with the bulk collection of this metadata and other programs that have been really overreach. And I voted against the reauthorizations. Now, I will say about the USA Freedom Act, it does make some small reforms to the underlying USA Patriot Act, but they really didn't go far enough in my mind. And I do believe it didn't just deserve a debate in the public eye on Section 215, but there's also other sections of the USA Patriot Act that we ought to be taking a closer look at.
Senator, what's your analysis of the function of the FISA court now that this bill is going to the president's desk? I mean, this really was the crux of the debate and the focal point of all of this, that the FISA court did not do what it was supposed to do, that there were secret conversations amongst government officials to go do things that the FISA court never saw. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on the FISA court. Back again when I was serving in the House, I had hoped that there would be opportunities for us to even hold hearings or have conversations with some of the judges that have been impaneled to serve on that, to really understand their process and be able to create the types of checks and balances that you need in an adversarial process. What we do know is that the FISA court has been a one-sided court. You only hear from government witnesses. This USA Freedom Act will make some changes, and these reforms are important. There will be impaneled a group of experts who can be brought in for novel cases. But frankly, I think the American public and the Constitution deserves a voice in those courts every time they meet.
Okay, what about these private companies now are going to be handling this information? Are you comfortable with that?
Well, the private companies handle this information and always have, and we do have choices about whether we have cell phones, whether we have landlines, et cetera, although most of us do. What I think is important is that we are moving towards a system where there are more checks and balances on the type of searches that can be done on these type of records. That is moving in the right direction, but I am still not convinced that we've gone far enough. And if I might go back to that original set of concerns I had about the USA Patriot Act, I think it blurs the lines between what the Fourth Amendment guarantees in terms of probable cause for a warrant to surveil U.S. citizens and this much lower relevance to an investigation standard. It's a slippery slope, and I think we've seen that has caused problems in the years since the original passage of the USA Patriot Act.
And finally, Senator, tonight, are you comfortable at heart that we are safer?
You know, certainly for a lot of reasons, we are safer since 9/11. We learned a lot. The 9/11 Commission taught us a lot, made lots of recommendations. And so for many reasons, but I have still, to this day, concerns about provisions of the USA Patriot Act, some that were before us in this debate on the Senate floor today, but some that weren't before us. Again, the Section 702 of the underlying USA Patriot Act that won't sunset for a couple of years yet. We still have to debate those provisions.
Okay. Senator Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin, good to have you with us tonight. I appreciate your time. Thank you. For more, let me bring in Congressman Jim McDermott of Washington. Congressman, good to have you with us. You voted in favor of the USA Freedom Act. In fact, there were 387 other members of the House who voted for it. It was an overwhelming support, and today it seemed like Republicans were against Republicans on this. But Congressman, I want to ask you about one of the things that came up on the Senate floor today, that the chairman of the Senate Intel Committee, Mr. Burr, says that the response time is going to be reduced. If that's the case, I find it hard to believe that Americans would be okay with that. I want your reaction.
Well, there's always choices to be made in a democracy. And people can give the government wide open access, and there'll be no delay whatsoever. There'll be none that they can claim there's a delay caused by anybody but their own ineptitude.
So how does this work? Does the NSA go to a phone company, say Verizon, and say, hey, we have got to have these records right now? Is the expediency of this going to be okay?
My understanding is when they want to put a wiretap on somebody or want to surveil, they have to go to the FISA court and explain why they're doing it. And if that's what I think we are entitled to make the government say why they want to look into our lives.
Okay.
Now, for most of us, it doesn't make any difference. But if we give it away because we think it only goes to bad guys, strange things begin to happen.
Well, Congressman, I was under the impression that the NSA can do what they want, but they have to notify and get authority from the FISA court within a number of hours after the wiretapping. You know, because of expediency, because they don't want to be delayed. If they think that they've got a bead on a terrorist, they got to get the information as quickly as possible, but they have to go back to the FISA court to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. What about that? Has that changed?
My understanding is they still have access to gathering data, but they do have to clear it through the FISA court. Now, whether it's before or immediately after, I'm not absolutely certain, but the fact is that there has to be some oversight on our intelligence agencies. They're gathering up everything, including the phone calls of the Prime Minister of Germany. That's way too far, and I think we ought to all, as Americans, be worried about our government getting all the information about us without us knowing it. I had a young woman come up to me one day. This is 10 years ago. Her parents had come from Iran. The government was covering their phone calls and came to the house and said to their mother, why are you calling Tehran? They had an aunt who was sick there. That kind of stuff does not, in my view, rise to the level of the government's right to intrude into our lives. These were American citizens, had been born in Iran, but they were being surveilled by our government without their knowledge.
Okay.
That's not fair.
So the final judgment here today, now that this is going to the president's desk, is that this is going to stop the government overreach, and this is going to stop the invasion of privacy by government officials, yet it's going to keep America safe, correct?
That's it, yes. I mean, that's what we're all striving for. We want to keep America safe. We don't want to do anything that makes us at risk. But the other thing is we want to protect Americans' right to their privacy, to their inalienable right to not be accused without having somebody have to go and demonstrate why they gathered this information.
Well, the Republicans, as I said in my open tonight, have always been for privatization. Now they've got it. We'll see how it goes.
Yep. I share with Tammy some of the fears. I voted for the bill. I voted against the Patriot Act and the extension of the Patriot Act. But I voted for this because it moved back a little bit in the right direction.
Okay.
Now, was it far enough?
Congressman Jim McDermott, always a pleasure. Good to have you with us.
See you again.
Thanks so much.